Hello, and welcome back to the Forza Italian Football Podcast. As always, I am your host, Connor Clancy, and joining me is just one person this week. It's the ever-reliable Vito Doria. Vito, it's a pleasure.
Yep, thank you, Connor. It's great to be on and pretty happy with the things going in this round. But yeah, commiserations to your team. You lost to the team from the dark side, unfortunately.
Yeah, sadly, I didn't expect you to bring this up, to be honest, given who Atalanta were beaten by, but it was a strange week, as you kind of touched on
Mm.
there. And if there was a week to lose, I think this week might have been it, given the way the results elsewhere went. But Vito, I guess the place to start is probably in Turin. It was on paper the big game of the weekend, but the outcome was never going to be anything other than a Juventus win, and that's exactly what came. Juve beat Roma 1-0, and surprise, surprise, Mario Mandžukić got an important goal in a big game.
Yeah, once again, he's the one that's decisive in the big moments for Juventus. And yeah, another routine win, especially based on the scoreline. Although Roma did have some possession towards the end of the game, I felt that it was Juventus's game to lose, really, because the Giallorossi did not pose much of a threat, and Szczesny did not need to make many saves. It was just easy for him to just let Bonucci and Chiellini clear things up, and that was pretty much it, really.
Yeah, well, Roma are now 10th. We will get into them, but Mandžukić, we love him on the podcast, but he still gets overlooked, even by us sometimes, because it is easy to look at Juve and think, oh, Cristiano Ronaldo, Paulo Dybala, these exciting players. But Mandžukić, how many times does he score these big goals in big games? And it's not only that he scores goals, he scores the same goal across to the back post where he absolutely bullies a defender and heads it. And it's just, he makes it so easy. And they've got this guy who doesn't get the credit he deserves. And look, we won't go into him because myself and Dov have spoken about him. We've all spoken about him. But Mandžukić, what a guy. Actually, do you think it's fair to say he's been their best player this season?
Can make a case for it. And I'm not sure about the exact statistics, but I read somewhere that he's probably scoring at a far more accurate rate than Ronaldo. So Ronaldo, he takes a lot more shots and he has scored more goals, but probably in terms of chance conversion, Mandžukić would probably be the more effective out of the two.
Yeah, Mandžukić, you just never doubt him when he has a chance. As you said, Cristiano does have a lot of shots, whereas Mandžukić, you see him lining up a shot, you see him coming into the box like that, you just think, oh, here comes a goal. Can we talk about Roma? Because Aaron Holland is already in the comments. Hello, Aaron. He says, I miss being the second best team in Italy. It might be a while before you hear that again. Currently the 10th best team in Italy. And what struck me about this is that after the game, Eusebio Di Francesco was talking about how there were so many positives. Vito, I'm not sure about you, but this to me sounded like a man who was trying to prove something that wasn't there in a desperate attempt to save his job.
It's pretty much the same with Gagliardini and a few other Inter players when they lost to Juventus a few weeks ago. To be honest, I think it's Di Francesco just trying to be positive in a situation where there's just so much negativity. Roma really lacked a lot of guile, and Zaniolo, he was involved in a few positive plays, but he was probably at fault for the Juve goal. And the main positive was, in fact, that Robin Olsen actually had a good game for Roma, as opposed to last week where he was woeful. So if he had another shocker like he did against the Grifone, the scoreline would have been much more embarrassing.
Yeah, well, Aaron has actually popped up into the comments with a comment on Olsen saying, imagine performing as well as Olsen did today and still not ever having any chance of winning. Is it that Olsen's performance was so good and Roma didn't have any chance of winning because they were so bad, or they are so bad? Or is it just because Juventus are, as we know them to be, just on a completely different level to the rest of Serie A?
Juventus are on a completely different level to everyone else, really. Roma, in general, still have a good squad, but there are injuries to deal with, and they are still in poor form, let's face it, even though they won last week. But when teams go to Juventus, they either feel intimidated, or because Juventus have that superior quality throughout the whole squad, it's pretty hard for any team to go to the Juventus stadium. Roma, they're not going to be the first team that's going to have trouble playing Juventus in Turin, and they certainly won't be the last. Yeah, it's just two different things, playing at home and playing there out of all places.
Yeah, well, you're right. Not many teams will be able to go to Juventus and give them a match or even win this year. But I don't know. The whole Roma thing strikes me as bizarre because they're 10th now. We're not at the beginning of a season anymore here. We're 17 games in. We're basically halfway through the campaign, and Roma are 10th. And at what point does it become a serious question where we have to say, okay, Di Francesco, maybe things didn't go as he would have liked in the summer. He did an okay job there last season. But this season has been shambolic. And surely at some point there has to come a point where Roma say, okay, enough is enough. We can get someone else in who can do a better job because this isn't acceptable.
Really depends on how good those candidates are to potentially replace Di Francesco. You don't really want to hire a guy who's going to improve them just a slight percentage. You want to see significant improvement. And as we've discussed on the previous podcast, guys like Vincenzo Montella, Paulo Sousa, and anyone else who's been linked with the job aren't really going to bring Roma not just back to the Europa League spots, but to really fight for the Champions League. I don't think some of those coaches are really up to that task. So for the time being, it's probably better just to see where Di Francesco goes with this squad. And if you really got to get rid of him, might as well just wait until Roma get out of the Champions League, or maybe even wait until the very end of the season. So whoever takes over next season has a fresh start and has a new squad to work with.
Is it not too early though to still write off the season? Because we look at the table and it is still so close there. Roma are 10th, but they could easily be 4th in the space of a month if results went their way. We've seen that with Atalanta being, what was a 5th last week, and now they're 9th. It changes so quickly. But if it could just be a case of the players in Di Francesco, it's just not working. They just need anyone else. We've seen in the past where it doesn't necessarily matter who comes in as much as it matters to get rid of the guy who it's not working for. You see in the Premier League now, Manchester United have sacked Jose Mourinho with no plans, it seems, to get in anyone who's an established coach, and they've brought back Solskjaer, and things looked a lot better this week for them. But I don't know, has it just gone completely wrong on a personal level for Di Francesco there? Or is it a tactical thing? Or is it because of the players he has at his disposal? Because we saw this summer they brought in a lot of players. Obviously, they got rid of Nainggolan. Kevin Strootman was sold as well. And they built this team that looked like it was planning for the future. They had Schick already. They brought in Kluivert, Cristante, Zaniolo as well. And is it the players that he has at his disposal, or is he just not the right man for them?
Throughout the season, I've been saying that it's mostly been the players that have been brought in. It's part of Roma's model to just chop and change and be a selling club. So I think that makes Di Francesco's situation a lot harder than it should be. If they do sack him now, perhaps they might need that new coach just to bring in something different, and perhaps they might have this honeymoon period under the new coach. But like I wrote in a feature for Forza Italian Football recently, if you change your coach, those coaches got to prove that they're good enough to stay beyond the honeymoon period. So regardless of who comes in, whether it be, let's say, Paulo Sousa, just to throw a name out there, he might win 3 or 4 games in a row, but if they decline, then it makes you wonder what was the point of getting rid of Di Francesco in the first place. They need someone who needs to bring in a lot more continuity and make sure they do well throughout the second half of the campaign.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong there. I want to talk about someone on the Juventus side that I do want to speak about is Mattia De Sciglio, because to be honest, I've been critical of him in the past, but he's been quite good this season. Do you think there's a connection there between João Cancelo coming in and De Sciglio finding arguably the best form we've ever seen from him? Because when he broke through at Milan, he was so highly tipped as being this really exciting fullback coming through in Italian football. And then it all kind of went stale, whether that was just because of Milan or if it was something deeper, who knows. But he went to Juve quite surprisingly and was just quite average. But now Cancelo's there. He's playing a lot better than he was before. Do you think the two are connected? Is Cancelo being there in some way better for Italy and De Sciglio?
I can see why you would make the connection, because there is clearly more competition for spots at Juventus than there have been at AC Milan for the last 5 or 10 years. De Sciglio's one of those players that, he's had potential, but he hasn't always been able to fulfill it. One of the good things, though, is it was Allegri who gave him his chance at AC Milan and knew what he was like back then. So at least now at Juventus, being with a strong set of teammates and also having his former mentor there, I think putting the two together, I think it makes things a lot easier for him.
Well, second place, we have Napoli, who are 8 points. Depressingly, 8 points behind Juve already, and they are in their own little league with themselves for second place, it seems. They beat Spal 1-0, but it was close. Alex Meret, he's back, he's fit, he's playing, and he's making big saves. He kind of won the game for them today. He made a huge save quite late on to cling on to the 3 points. And Vito, we've spoken about Napoli's problems at times this season when they had Ospina and goals. Carneses is there as well. Obviously, he's not very good. Meret's going to be huge for them going forward, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He's only about 21 years old, but you can understand why Napoli paid the money for him. If it wasn't for him and they had either Ospina or Carneses in goal, I think Spal would have taken the points, because the saves that he made on Poloski and then on Mohamed Fares for the header, they were absolutely superb saves. So I think it's going to be great for Napoli, heading into the future to have a goalkeeper like him, because he's such a promising prospect. And although Europe is, a couple months away, I wonder if Ancelotti will give him more time in the Europa League, see if he gets some exposure that way, because, he's the kind of goalkeeper that I reckon over time the rest of the world will keep their eyes on and focus on, because Italy still knows how to produce fantastic goalkeepers. It's not just Gianluigi Donnarumma. So even if Donnarumma doesn't work out for the best, Meret's probably the next in line. So at least that is one position where the future of Italian football is in good hands.
Yeah, for me, Meret is the best of this generation of goalkeepers. There are quite a few coming through at the moment, but I just think Meret's head and shoulders above the rest of them. He's even better than Donnarumma for me. I know he's a bit more raw and he doesn't have that experience, but I just think he's a more composed presence, and he's more reliable, more trustworthy almost than Donnarumma is. We've seen Donnarumma make mistakes, and although I wouldn't necessarily hold every single one of them against him, I think there is always that mistake in him. But when Meret went to Napoli, I thought it was such an upgrade on Pepe Reina, and then he was so unfortunate to miss out through injury for the first half of the season. It was such a shame that they had to bring in Ospina, because, being honest, Ospina's not as good as even Pepe Reina was. And Napoli kind of had to start from a disadvantage without having their first choice goalkeeper for so long. And to their credit, it hasn't really done them too much harm. They're not going to win Serie A, but they look quite strongly positioned to finish second again, which I suppose is an achievement. And I do think Meret will be a big factor in that. And you would hope that he plays. He is their first choice, not only in Serie A, but in Europe as well, because surely now, Vito, Europe is what their season will be defined by, will be success in the Europa League. So it would be a real shame for them to write that off and just focus on Serie A come the second half of the season.
Well, Napoli, they've been pushing for the Scudetto, but they've put their eggs all in one basket on 2 or 3 occasions, and it's failed. So I would like to see them have a genuine crack at the Europa League. They have Carlo Ancelotti as a coach who knows how to win cup tournaments. And if Napoli take it seriously, they have a good run, and let's just say they somehow win it, it'll be 30 years since they won the old UEFA Cup when they had the legend himself, Diego Maradona, and then all those other great players like Ciro Ferrara, Careca, and so forth. So I think it'd be a nice touch.
I'm just looking at the table, and they're 8 points off top, obviously. Is there any chance at all that we see a title race this season? I don't see it. But Juve are still in the Champions League. They got Atletico Madrid. If they go far, do you think there's any chance they could drop enough points for Napoli to make this interesting?
No, I think this time Juve's depth is far too strong. It was strong enough before Ronaldo came in, and then you bring in someone who's not only been one of the best players in the world for the last 10 years, but possibly one of the greatest players of all time. That's very hard for a team like Napoli to compete. So I think this is Juve's Scudetto to lose at the moment, unfortunately. So that's why I really want to see Napoli put more effort and focus into the cup tournaments, because that's where I think they've got a better chance of having better runs and maybe have the off chance of possibly winning it if they can get the focus right.
In previous years, obviously Maurizio Sarri has been reluctant to use his bench, but this year Ancelotti has not only used it, but gotten the best out of the players that aren't necessarily first 11 players every week. Do you think they need to add anything in the winter market? Because they seem pretty well stocked up top and arguably in midfield too. Are there any areas of the team that need strengthening?
To be honest, I don't think how strengthening the team in January in their case is going to make any significant difference at this moment. I think in most positions they're probably well covered. If anything, where they might need to look to improve might be at the end of this season, because there'll be a few players such as Albiol, Mertens, and Hamsik. They're over 30. Mertens is still good, but Albiol and Hamsik, you've got to see where do they fit in the long-term picture of this team, and perhaps that's where Napoli might need to find some sufficient replacements. And even Callejon is over 32, so he's a player that needs to have his position looked at, because even at his age, he's got great energy, but in the long term, when is that stamina gonna weaken? You need players who can continue on.
Yeah, Aaron Holland says they could end the season within 6 points of Juve, but it will be a late gain more than ever being a title race, and I think sadly that is probably completely accurate. Lazio beat Cagliari 3-1. It was a big win for them this week, given that Milan lost, Atalanta lost, Sassuolo and Torino took points off each other, Roma lost. So Lazio are the big winners here this weekend after the disappointment of Monday night in Bergamo. And Sergei Milinkovic-Savic scored, Vito. He actually scored a goal.
He did. And to be honest, I think, as I was suggesting last week, Inzaghi needed to play Luis Alberto and Joaquin Correa together with Ciro Immobile, and it worked. For me, this was probably the best game they've played this season, Lazio. And I felt they could have won by, they could have won by a lot more, to be honest. Correa, Luis Alberto, Milinkovic-Savic, they were in superb form. Immobile probably should have scored 3 or 4, but he did not get any, which is pretty surprising. And Yeah, I didn't think Cagliari posed much of a threat. And the one who was a bit of a threat, Alberto Cherry, was taken off at half-time. So, yeah, you could say Maran got a few things wrong, but Inzaghi got many things right, and he deserves credit for that.
They are now fourth, 1 point ahead of Milan. And given the situation at the San Siro, I guess Lazio are probably favourites to hold on to that fourth place, because as much as they have been inconsistent at times, they do have the best squad. Well, I don't know if they do actually have the best squad, but they've definitely got a better coach than Milan and a lot of the other teams competing for that final Champions League place. And if they do keep finding this right algorithm, if you want to call it that, they're probably favourites to cling on now.
At this stage, it seems to be the case, and I do really believe that if this combo of having Luis Alberto and Correa playing behind Immobile continuously works, I think that gives them a big chance to really hold on to the Champions League spot, and maybe it might be decisive for them in the cup competitions, and also in the big games in the league, because they provide a lot more unpredictability and takes pressure off Immobile. So if you can still win easily without Immobile scoring, I think that's a very good sign. It shows that Lazio do have extra scoring options when they're going forward.
Yeah, well, they did climb into the Champions League places at the expense of Milan, who lost at home to Fiorentina, who themselves are getting back on track now. They've won, I think it's 3 in a row, and Federico Chiesa got a big goal for them, a pretty good strike as well. But Gennaro Gattuso, after the game, said that AC Milan are in crisis, which is never something you want to hear your club's coach say. And I'm sure the Milan fans are pulling their hair out hearing Gattuso say that. But Vito, is he being a bit over the top, or is he right?
I think he's spot on, but I do think it's also a cop-out that your head coach says that in public. Those kind of things you keep them internally. I do admire Gattuso generally being honest, especially since Milan got that 2-2 draw against Benevento last season, and his comments there when he wanted to stab himself. But with all honesty, that's where you need a bit of diplomacy, and you don't talk about crisis. You try to divert the attention away. And I didn't think it was a well-handled interview by Gattuso, because he even said that his players weren't good enough technically and that the squad was lacking quality. Again, in that situation, you try to cover things up as much as you can. So although there are some truths that we can see externally, I think there are a few things within the locker room that he should be handling a lot better, and the directors of the club should be trying to identify how they can improve the squad in January without Gattuso making such comments.
You would worry about it, wouldn't you? Because it's so strange for a coach to say something like that. This is the sort of thing, as you said, that stays in the dressing room. If you're in a crisis, you get these leaks from players and stuff, players' agents saying this and that. But for the coach to come out and say in a format as public as a press conference, we are in crisis, that seems bizarre to me. But there were a few things to emerge from this. One of them was that Jose Maury played, and actually played quite well, which I am aware that he still plays for Milan, but every once in a while I forget and I see his name on the team sheet and I am shocked. And this was one of those occasions. But Riccardo Montolivo's agent came out before this game today, I think it was beforehand, and was condemning the situation of his player there, and asked if Milan thought Montolivo had a contagious disease, which I thought was quite strange, quite unusual. But does Montolivo, surely there is no place for Montolivo in a side who wants to be getting into the Champions League places?
Absolutely not. Montolivo is one of the great wasted talents of Italian football, and I just think since he's been at Milan, he's been more of a liability than an asset. To me, he's one of those players that had potential and had some ability, but I saw him as someone who lacked leadership, lacked courage, lacked determination and probably did not have enough self-belief. You need someone who has those fighting qualities of a Gattuso, but still has those mercurial talents of, you know, a Pirlo or Kaká. So Montolivo is none of those guys, and he might as well just terminate his contract and speak to Berlusconi and Galliani at Monza and play some Serie A.
Yeah, I think that's probably about his level. But he could probably do a job for someone like Bologna or someone. But who knows? Maybe, given how slow Bologna play, that might not be the best of options. But what struck me about Milan, not only today, but in recent weeks, is how completely disjointed their attack has been. I mean, there was an incident when Hakan Çalhanoğlu had a chance and he tried to shoot through about 4 bodies when Gonzalo Higuain was unmarked in the 6-yard box, and the pass to Higuain was as easy as taking the shot. And it just seems like they are a team of individuals in attack. Çalhanoğlu, Suso, and Higuain. We've seen Higuain and Suso combine well, but in recent weeks, for whatever reason, that connection just isn't quite there anymore. And Higuain is obviously one of the most clinical finishers that Serie A has had in the last few years, and that is still true. I just think they need to find ways to get him into scoring positions a bit more. I know it's so easy to say that, but seriously, they've brought him in to score goals, and his record isn't actually that bad. I think he's scoring like 1 and 2, but he's just not getting enough service. Vito, let's lift the spirit. Empoli 2, Sampdoria 4. This was quite good. Fabio Quagliarella he's eternal.
Yeah, the evergreen Quagliarella. It's incredible. He's got 10 goals for the season now, and he scored in his last 7 Serie A games, and that's a club record. I read in La Gazzetta he has beaten the club record of a player called Paolo Barison, who was a bit of a journeyman winger, but scored a few goals. He even played for AC Milan in the 60s and played for Italy at the 1966 World Cup. So, yeah, a bit of a feat there for Quagliarella, and it was a fantastic header to make it 2-1. So, yeah, can't go wrong at this stage, at least with him anyway.
Question for you. Before Fabio Quagliarella, do you know who the last Italian player to score in 7 Serie A games in a row was?
I'd be taking a wild guess and say Luca Toni.
It was in 2010, and it was Antonio Di Natale, which is quite fitting given this is the last pod before Christmas. It was big Anthony.
Yes.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And that was, I think, when Di Natale went through that purple patch, not the one very late on in his career, but the one just before that, 8 years ago. So Di Natale and Quagliarella, similar enough guys in that regard, I guess. But it's great to see him score. But the real hero for the Blue Cerchiati today was Caprari. He started the season quite well. Him, De Frel, and Quagliarella, he's faded a little bit in the last couple of months, I guess. But he turned it on when you needed him to today.
Yeah, definitely. Caprari, he's been pretty inconsistent since playing at Sampdoria, but he's been providing a few goals, which is good. And the 2 goals he scored today, well, the goal to make it 3-2 was a bit fortunate because I thought Provedel probably should have held the ball better in that instance. But the goal to make it 4-2, oh, that was sensational. Nicola Muru with the pass, and then Caprari to take that left foot shot from the tight angle. Oh, that was amazing. That goal seriously needs to be trending more on social media because that was a fabulous strike. And again, Sampdoria, I don't know what it is, but we're just having this thing of trying to score more spectacular goals than the other, you know? So it's Caprari's goal here, Saponara's karate kick goal against Lazio, Quagliarella's back heel against Napoli. So we're certainly producing goals for the highlights reel. So even though we're probably not great goal scorers like Juve and Napoli, at least we're the scorers of great goals. So we've got some redeeming features at the moment.
You guys are having your own goal of the season competition, and
pretty much
it will be I think it's bound to go to either Quagliarella or Saponara if the goal of the season was awarded now. So surely one of those two will be up there come the end of the season. But I was walking through the center of Parma today, looking to buy some ham, and I was walking past a little bar, and all I heard was an eruption of ooh, and then I stopped. I thought that was an unusual noise, and I looked in, and the reaction was because of that goal, and the replay was being shown, and every time the replay was shown, it was a quieter and quieter version of the original sound, which was quite nice. But we have a question. What time is it in Australia?
It is 11:40 a.m.
There you go. And if you're interested, it's 1:40 a.m. in Parma. Right, where shall we go now? I think we don't need to do too much more. Chievo 1, Inter 1. Let's give Sergio Pellissier some love, because the guy is 93 years old and he just keeps scoring these goals. If Chievo didn't have Sergio Pellissier, they would be in Serie D.
Pretty much. Him and Sorrentino. Let's face it, Chievo are a two-man team. You just got to make sure that Stefano Sorrentino and Sergio Pellissier are in the right condition, and Chievo will do something, because they are the two talismen. They are the two difference makers. And that was a fantastic chip by Pellissier too. So, and that was one of the things that was missing under Lorenzo Danna and Giampiero Ventura, that Pellissier was just staying on the bench. But Di Carlo's been giving him a chance. He's worked with him before through his previous stints at the Flying Donkeys. So Pellissier is rewarding Di Carlo with the faith, and yeah, it's been good so far. He's doing well at 39, so it's incredible. But I do hope they play badly midweek against some.
Well, Pellissier and Sorrentino will definitely be eating too much panettone and pandoro on Christmas Day to perform on the 26th. So I think you might be safe there. As long as you can keep Quags hungry, you're all right.
Definitely.
But yeah, the composure from Pellissier to take an attempt like that in the 90th minute against Inter was phenomenal. Right, Genoa beat Atalanta 3-1. Sassuolo and Torino drew 1 each. Udinese and Frosinone drew 1 each. And the game I was at was Parma 0, Bologna 0 in the Christmas derby, the derby of Emilia-Romagna. And it was the second worst game I've seen this season, behind only Parma 0, Frosinone 0. This was horrendous. Gervinho played. He's not fit. He could barely move. Santander played for Bologna and just reinforced what I've always known to be true, that he's horrendous. He's terrible. He's not a footballer. He came off and was replaced by one of our listeners, Mattia Destro, who took his turn to do absolutely nothing. More than anything else, this game just made me feel really sorry for Roberto Inglese, because Parma don't serve him enough, and I feel quite bad for the guy, because he's expected to do things that he can't do, and he's not allowed to do the things that he does do well. And yeah, I don't want to talk about this too much, but Bruno Alves, right, Vito, this is the week where we're going to give Bruno Alves some love, because there's nothing else for us to talk about. The guy has been phenomenal since going to Parma. I thought he was done when he went to Rangers, but he's come back to the elite, and he's doing it. We have I have a Portuguese friend here, and she absolutely adores Bruno Alves for obvious reasons. And she pointed out the way he attacks a ball when he heads it. And it's like, when you throw food up for a really hungry dog and they jump at it and just attack it with their face. That's what Bruno Alves does when he goes for a header. And it's one of the most beautiful sights in football.
He does provide that Parma side with valuable experience, because there's so many players who have played mostly in the lower divisions. So even in his late 30s, Bruno Alves is still going to make sure that everyone's in the right place, in the right condition. And the way Parma is set up with the deep defending, I think it suits them to a T. Just having him there is very convenient.
Yeah, and Alessandro Bastoni, this is a guy who came through at Atalanta, obviously, went to Inter and was shipped out on loan to Parma. And even in the last 3 weeks, I think he came into the team about a month ago, but he's been playing consistently since. And the progression you can see in Bastoni week on week from playing with Bruno Alves is ridiculous. The confidence that the kid has now. and just the way he attacks the ball as well is quite nice. And he looks like he's benefiting to no end from having Bruno Alves beside him. But Vito, I think unless you have anything else to say, this is us.
Yeah, that's probably about it for now. And yeah, just another musing round as we keep on reviewing the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know what our plans are after during the Christmas period. Hang on, we have a question. Aaron, you're a little bit late. What are some of the best games in the next round? Well, that is something you could check, but I will tell you there aren't too many really good games. Atalanta host Juventus on the 26th of December, which could be interesting. Inter host Napoli on the same day at 8:30, so they're probably two games to watch. If you like car crashes, Roma play Sassuolo at home at 6 o'clock, so you could sit down in front of your TV at 12:30 European time and watch Frosinone Milan, and then you've got Fiorentina Parma, Cagliari Genoa, Bologna Lazio, Atalanta Juve, Sampdoria Chievo at 3. Then at 6 o'clock you've got Torino Empoli, Roma Sassuolo, Spal Udinese, and then at 8:30 you've got Inter Napoli. So Aaron, there are all of the games. You can choose which ones you want to watch from that list. But yeah, I don't really know what our plans are throughout the Christmas period. We'll try come back as soon as we possibly can. Maybe not on the 26th, but after the round of fixtures on the 29th, so next weekend possibly. I am flying home tomorrow. Well, I guess technically tonight, and I'm really excited. So if you can remove the Guinness from my hands, I will join you for a pod, Vito. But I have nothing else to say except for Vito, Merry Christmas. Thank you for all of your hard work as ever throughout this year. You are eternally appreciated.
Thank you so much, Connor, and safe trip home back to Ireland, and Merry Christmas to you as well.
Thank you very much.
And to our listeners.
Yes, absolutely. From everyone at ForzaItalianFootball.com, everyone at the FIFpod, Merry Christmas to all of our listeners, wherever you are listening to us from in the world. Buon Natale a tutti. Have an amazing new year if we don't speak to you before then. And all that's left for me to say until next time is ciao for now.
Ciao e buon Natale.